Dana Allen is the former co-founder and chairman of the board of Newsmax magazine. He's an inventor. He's an interesting guy, and I'm delighted to welcome to the program. Hey, Dana.
How you doing, Jeff?
Good to have you. This is like getting the band back together again. You and I did most of our heavy lifting damage in the 90s here in the Bay Area.
That's right. It does seem like old times. I've been talking to a lot of our mutual friends, people like Patrick Matriciana and so forth. So, yeah, very much. And it's good to hear you on KSFO.
It's good to be back. We don't have a lot of time, so I want to get to the nub of this. You've in the wake of frustration about the mainstream's mendacity, have come up with this concept called the American Uncensored News Network. And it's great to have an idea, but if you don't have a tool with which you can deliver the message, you're kind of SOL. So tell our listeners what you've come up with.
Well, yeah, I was, as you're aware, I was actually trying to buy an existing TV network, which I could have gotten for $7 million, and I just couldn't get enough other people go in, but I did get about 25 smaller investors, and that's since gone up 80 times. So then that's hundreds of millions of dollars to take it over now. So I sold out of that, and I was looking for just a small TV station to start off, and actually I ran into a very big deal. And so it's 4 TV stations that cover most of Northern California with 9 million viewers in the broadcast area. So it's a broadcast television. And I know you live in Sacramento, so one of the stations is KKPM 28 in Sacramento, and there's 26 in Santa Rosa. That's a small station. And then we are going to be broadcasting on Channel 2 out of the wine country, which will get in the North Bay area because of KTVU, we're going to have to switch it. They don't broadcast on Channel 2, but we will be. So we'll have a different number on that. And then the crown jewel is we're going to have off of Mount Tam for the whole Bay Area, Channel 3, which will be broadcasting on Channel 3, and the viewers will see it as Channel 3.
Okay, so you have these 4 stations that are going to cover basically from like Reno down and through the Central Valley to the Bay Area. What are you going to do with it?
Well, the general format is we'll have like a 7 o'clock news hour, but most of it we'll show documentaries on news that's being censored, documentaries that are being suppressed, and then follow that with live talk. And then if the viewers, want to call in, they can call in on Skype if they want to. And so their video, they'll be up on the screen along with the guest and the host.
How is this different from things that, like Glenn Beck's doing with Blaze and others?
There's definitely similarity with Glenn Beck on Blaze, but we'll be the only ones that are truly uncensored. Like Fox is much better than MSNBC or CNN, but they're afraid of certain stories. And actually, Glenn's a great educator, but he's afraid of a few stories. So we're going to pay attention to the name of our company, and we'll give completely uncensored news. I can give you an example of one story on that. Is Sheriff Arpaio, came out and said that Barack Obama's birth certificate after 2,200-hour, official police investigation was not only a forgery, it was a poor amateur forgery. The news media has completely blacked this out. They haven't let the people know this has happened. And, you don't even have to take a side on this. Either the most famous sheriff in America has committed some felonies to try to frame him, along with, like 10 or 15 other investigators that worked with him, or the President of the United States has committed a felony by supplying a forged document. Huge story, and no one gets to hear about it.
Here's the obvious question. I'm not going to use names here, but we both know guys who were big on stories and were eventually, because of money resources, told to be quiet about something. And I'm not going to go beyond that, okay? And so someone who I had a lot of respect for, who did some real heavy lifting on some real difficult things, was basically silenced because of on a couple of stories because someone didn't want it out. What's going to happen if or when, say I'm doing an interview for you and I get into something and you don't like it?
Yeah.
Are you going to pick up the phone and say, okay, Jeff, you can't talk about that anymore?
No, not really. It's just the facts speak for themselves, we're totally uncensored. There's sometimes you get involved with national secrets, and I've worked out of the Washington D.C. area, and we revealed some very big things, Chinagate and so forth. And but the only story that I've ever censored was actually about a political opponent, someone that everyone that's listening would know about, a very embarrassing story. But then this is when I was at Newsmax, and I was the one given the decision whether we ran with this story or not. And I said, well, Was it illegal? No. It was a long time ago. It had nothing to do with the government. And if it was someone I liked, would I like this story to come out? And the answer is no, even though I very much disliked this very famous politician. So we never ran with it. That's the only story I've ever spiked in my life.
See, I had a situation where Joe Bannister was, now you know who he is. Some listeners may remember him. Joe Bannister was a badge-carrying, gun-carrying IRS special agent. And he lived in the Bay Area. And he was a fan of my program when I was on KSFO, and and over the years he developed I guess a trust and a respect for me, and I had D.V. Kidd on one day, and he heard these things that D.V. was saying about the 16th Amendment, and it ran counter to what Joe believed and what he was charged with enforcing. So he did his own homework. He said, I can't believe Geoff would put that crazy broad on if it wasn't some substance to it. Long story short, Joe did the research, came up with documentation that corroborated what D.V. and Bill Benson and others said, took it to his bosses at the IRS and said, would you guys look at this and tell me if it's flawed or anything? And they said, no, but we'll help you fill out your retirement papers. And they did.
Yep, I know. That's happened a lot of times. A case that you're familiar with Ron Brown, where him and 30 people were killed in a jetliner crash, and there's one military doctor came forward and said he had a perfectly circular .45 caliber hole through the top of his head. And he said it appeared to be a bullet hole, and then the Air Force said, oh, he's gone insane, and they fired him. Well, another doctor that was in the examining room said, this is wrong. He told the truth. They fired him and said he went insane. Third doctor that saw it, and the forensic photographer. So 4 people were fired for just doing their jobs and being honest and ethical, and yet have we ever heard of it in the news media? I have the x-rays and the photographs of that apparent bullet hole in Ron Brown's head, and to this day it's being covered up.
I've seen that, and I've also I'm cleaning my garage out, and I found Ben Parton's report on the Oklahoma City bombing, and here's a one-star Air Force general does this very detailed forensic analysis of the explosive charges necessary and everything that demonstrate. If nothing else, Parton's report clearly demonstrated that fertilizer bomb isn't what brought down the Murrah building. Yes. And the mainstream they bulldozed that into a small pile. That's right. What it sort of reminds me of, Geoff, is there's a movie that I really like called The Matrix. It's probably one of the most popular movies of the last 20 years, and he has this one scene where he offers them a choice between the red pill and the blue pill. And he said, you get to wake up in the morning and forget this ever happened, or I'm going to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes, how much deception there is in the world. And that's the choice that people have that we're going to give them. They really don't have that choice on television. They do on radio and the internet, but on television, the completely uncensored news is not available to the people, so we'll give them that same choice. And, the people deserve that. I think for the good of the country, that's why we had the First Amendment, is that the people that created the country realized that corruption would blossom unless you had a news media that could not be put in jail for reporting what's going on. But we have now on television is some are better than others, but no one's really willing to report exactly what's going on. They're afraid of certain stories as the ones that we've just discussed. And then you get the Metcalf bromide that some people just don't want to be confused with facts that contradict their preconceived opinion or prejudice. That's a fact. That has been proven by psychologists. It's called the there's several biases, a normalcy bias, and then the other one is people just not being able to deal with the fact that they were wrong about something or had a misconception about it. How beyond this 4-station mini network that you're throwing up, which by the way I should mention, the website, we want to tell people how to find it. It's www.AUN Alpha Uniform November -TV.com. That's right. And beyond that, how do you increase your scope? Because if you're only talking to small segments of small communities, you're going to be as significant as a pea hole in a Montana snowbank. Well, the interesting thing is that market, there's 9 million people in the area, and includes the number 6 market, which is San Francisco Bay Area, and the number 20 market, that's Sacramento. So actually, it's 1/3 as big as that company that is now worth like $500 million. I won't say what the name of the company is that we tried to take over. So actually, we have a pretty big footprint right off the bat.
and then we.
Well, you have a big potential footprint. I mean, the reality is you're going to get an incredibly small share of that market initially. You realize that?
Yeah, I'm not. We're not on cable day one, but we will probably get cable carry. But just the number of people that are antenna only in that market is 1.7 million. They only have about 25 choices. So actually, if we get our fair share of that market, it's about the same as the ratings for Larry Kudlow. He gets about 25, 30,000 people. Surprising because he's available all the way across the United States. So I think it's actually a big market, and the antenna-only market's growing. We'll get cable, and then we'll be on livestream.com, so anyone in the United States can
maybe you ought to call Phil Robertson. He might be looking for a gig.
Okay.
I'm being facetious. I think Glenn already called him.
And then we can take this same formula and march it across the United States. With digital broadcast television, it has much better channel separation, so people can take an existing channel and split it into a couple channels. And so that's sort of what we're doing at this point. We have a partner who's putting up the two towers. Two of the stations are older stations. Two towers are being put up now, and I think I'm going to make it work here in Northern California, which is a very big market, and then march it across the United States.
How long before you think it's going to be up?
Probably about much sooner than I want to. Probably about 30 days. I was just talking to Keith Leach, who's the one that's putting up the towers and so forth. So it looks about 30 days, maybe 45 days. The San Francisco channel will come up later because that one is being constructed. The one in the wine country is already constructed, but we haven't turned the signal on. And the other two are basically just putting out a broadcast pattern right now as we're getting ready. Lots and lots of work to get this thing together.
Dana, I thank you for giving us the heads up on it. The website, again, for people seeking information on this, and I would ask you to check in periodically with it, is www.AUN-TV.com. I'll get that on my webpage as a link for you. And Dana, it's always good talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thanks so much for having me on. Enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Dana Allen. Check it out. I'm Geoff Metcalf for Barbara Simpson on Hot Talk 560 KSFO.
He's met with scores of actors.